So let's start with your name. If you could say a few words about yourself, where you are now, also.
Okay. I am Klepner. I am located right now in a place called Marbletown, New York, which is outside of New York City. And it's actually closer to Woodstock, which many people may know that name, Woodstock, New York. And I've been here since March because I have a weekend home that's outside of the city. And in this land and time of COVID-19, it's been obvious that it's been necessary to be outside of the city and to be meeting by people with Zoom. And I work with people, individuals, couples, and groups, and have been doing this since the late 1970s, early 1980s. And Gestalt therapy has been very special for me in my life and has been an important source of nourishment and personal growth and has helped guide me. So in my work with others, I'm very pleased to be able to extend how I've benefited to their own benefit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We will get to Gestalt therapy later, but first I would like to discuss with you. I would like to know more about you. Not only because I hardly know you, but also because it's the way. It's the way we conduct those interviews. I'm still aware of this connection, and there's one more thing I will do, even though we are already recording, because I can, switch to another Wi-Fi, which I think will be better.
Sure.
So I may be speechless for a moment. Wait. Okay, I'm back. Yes. Sorry for that, but yeah, this is this world we live now. We are living in now. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, it is a bit better. Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. Good.
I forgot that there are two Wi-Fi's here and that I can switch and see. Okay. How do you, by the way, I know it's not about you as a person, as a human, but how do you manage with these technological things when they, come across, when they pop up during the sessions with your clients? What do you do?
When what pops up?
Those technical issues. Like this one, that there is a connection which is unstable and so on.
Okay. Well, often I just let it be that it'll report unstable connection, but it really doesn't interfere very much. It comes and goes. And I'll also, if it is significant, I'll switch to Zoom, to FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is difficult also, as sometimes it is, I'll just go to phone. I'll just talk on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And often, one of those three works.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, one of those three works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very rarely has technical disruptions occurred. Mm-hmm. So it's been good that way.
Yeah, I can see that some people, they are somehow at ease, or they have become at ease with time. That that's okay. There are the connection is unstable, but all right. Let's not panic. And yeah.
Sometimes I have panicked. I can always feel moments of tension running through me when I begin, especially more so with groups than I am with individuals. But the tension of, will this connection be okay? And will it be disruptive? And generally, I have not found it to be disruptive. That we get to our work, we get to what we need to do in a session.
Well, I can see.
But there has been a...
Go on.
I wonder, so I'm always exploring experience. And as you mentioned, this unstable connection that I can't see, what does it feel? And we don't, you and I have not spoken much before, really, in person. And so I've gotten to see you any number of times, but not really converse with you directly. So how does it feel for you to see me this way?
Yeah, this is that's why I somehow stopped the order, the given order of the interview, and yeah, because I am somehow tensed, and I feel tension. And it's not easy to open to this experience of not seeing you clearly. And when you mentioned FaceTime, so I wanted, okay, so let's do this. But then, well, I don't know, maybe if it is worth it. I mean, to again trying, or is it better just to adapt to what it is, really?
Well, everything is an experiment for me. And I think of this moment as a little bit of an experiment. And the difficulty you might be having, or anyone who is seeing this video might be having, with some fogginess or grayness that is not allowing a clear picture to come through. And as we speak, I associate that to Gestalt therapy, where so much of what we are contacting is our experience of vagueness or lack of clarity. And I would suggest you contact that place in you of discomfort, pain. Recently in the COVID disaster, and the social disorder that we've been recognizing and becoming more aware of, I've been working on a Buddhist Taoist prescription of reality, contact, and action. So, or let me change that. It's really reality, acceptance, and action. So the reality is that my picture is coming through vague and with some disruption right now. And that's the reality. And it's really also in Gestalt therapy, it's emergency and reality and evaluation. So I'm staying with the pain of my discomfort, accepting it, and letting myself breathe with that. Having faith that as we do that together, something new will emerge and we'll find ground to be with one another with.
Well, in fact, yeah, when I focus on listening to you or hearing you, it's better than when I'm trying to do my best and somehow uh, get rid of this vagueness, which is out of my control, really. And I've spent like some time today, well, this morning and afternoon, um, looking at the screen, writing and so on. So my eyes are, yeah, they are a bit tired, and so it's good even to somehow to dare to close my eyes, in fact, in your company, if it is, I don't know if it is possible.
Yes.
And if it is okay for you.
Yes, it is okay. And I'm going to speak to not only you, but anyone watching this. I'm going to take off my glasses where I can still really see you.
Ah,
But my glasses allow me to see every small detail. And if I accept that, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to accept what this reality is. And since I know intellectually we don't know each other well, that most of what I see and what you see is fantasy that we fill in the blanks with, my accepting this vagueness also feels like a little bit of getting to know you. And I'm interested in meeting you. I'm interested in meeting everyone I speak to. I have this little thing going that I like check-ins with people because I get to know where they are and what they are about. And so this is kind of like a little check-in with you. And a meeting you with vagueness that reflects the reality of who you and I are together. And accepting that allows me to open up to you more and to feel the things I see when I see you here now, which is brightness and warmth and acceptance and openness to stepping back from my wearing my glasses, you using your eyes for hyper focusing, because meeting someone is always a little tense, is tense making for everyone because it's millions and millions of new perceptions. So letting myself breathe and relax with you begins to be pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in fact, the question I was to ask you, I in fact already said it. That is about who you are as a person. This experiment, if I can call it, which is at the same time our experience, is tells something about you already. At least this is how I experienced you at the last meeting. At the last meeting, at this meeting of social activism special interest group, that you indeed are interested in those check-ins, and you sort of built on that. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but and then you contribute yourself to the field. And yeah, it is very precious, and it was at that moment very precious to me. It was very I really value it a lot. Mm.
Thank you. It's something I'm really, as you mention it, I come to it with some fresh perspective that I didn't really know that I am this way. I'm beginning to accept that I am this way. I didn't know it. Really, it's become more evident because I get feedback, but not quite of this subject. And I've gotten more of that consistently. So I'm beginning to appreciate it and understand it. And you asked me about my life. I guess I've been, my whole life has been really about that subject, which I hear that I perceive as healing my early wounds of disconnection.
Mm.
And appreciating those early wounds, I've gotten to, in a way, rebalance myself and open myself in a new way to the new moments that are arising every moment. So that less and less and less and less am I impacted by those early learning experiences. So being with someone is, for me, just being alive, just being alive.
Mm. Mm.
I came to Gestalt therapy. I think somewhere along the line you're going to ask me how I came to Gestalt therapy as
Yes.
part of my life, and it works. And if you're not ready for that, you can just ask me to stop any moment. Anytime you have an interruption, I'm interested because it's part of our co-creation. So just let me know. But since we're on this subject of opening oneself to life and humanity, I think the early part of my life was pretty much being my parents' child and trying to do the next right thing. And noticing at some point how that was all failing and falling apart. And so then I, of course, like most of everyone who's viewing this, went to therapy to figure out what this terrible disturbance was. And I was able to orient myself that the profession I was in was the wrong profession, was not me. And the person I was partnering with wasn't the right person for me. And how I wanted to have the next moment. And I've been working for that ever since. And so, and that's what Gestalt therapy means to me as well, that the forming figure and the quality of the figures formed is a way to live in the world with the best that I can do for myself and others.
Well, about two things, two thoughts, and one is at least I will start with the first one because well, you said it yourself that it is somehow that you are engaged in, as I understood, in Buddhism, Taoism. Is that so, or Buddhism, some kind of path of Buddhists? Yes, Buddhism.
Yes, I could not possibly call myself a Buddhist, but Buddhism, Taoism, enlightenment and awareness has always been a part of Gestalt therapy, and it's a part of Western culture and Eastern culture. It's part of everything. Know thyself, to thine own self be true, and written on the Temple of Thebes, know thyself. So there are certain mantras that I try to support myself with, orient myself from day to day, issue to issue. And so awareness, acceptance, and action is a nice three-word expression I've been using in recent weeks. I used to call myself an atheist because I'm very Darwinian, but now I call myself a spiritualist because in being spiritual, I think we humans have the potential to connect to the rest of the universe and the world and people. And so I have always felt that connection, that in seeing the traumas of others, I have felt the trauma within me, and have always strived to connect with other people supporting various movements. So in high school, I wanted to demonstrate with racism in the South, but I was young and I was too afraid. But I was able to march in civil rights marches throughout the 60s and the Vietnam War protests in the 70s, and the gay when they were protest marches, and have tried to, I identify with people wherever they are, and with whatever nationality, and with whatever ethnic distinction there is, that we are all humans together, and with varying degrees of health and balance. Yeah.
I asked you about this Buddhism because you, sounded like I mean, well, at least a spiritual person in a way, like. I do want to, I mean, it's really, I don't know, it's the first time I actually close my eyes in company of another person. And,
Yes, I'm glad you have. I'm glad you have. I have not felt any diminution in my being with you, and I welcome and support you doing that.
And it's how to put it, how to call it, what I'm trying to say, that it is what you are saying now, what you've already said about your life and this starting, I mean, that you experience a lot of disconnection, and then you strive all your life for connection. It is, well, I would ask simply, where did you get your energy from to have that, to search for contacts, to even fight for connection, as I understood? Didn't you experience moments of withdrawal in your younger years? Because now I am speaking with you. I don't know. I haven't asked you about your age, but how how did it look like? From those moments of trauma, and I wonder how did. Wow, it's amazing that you. This is what I'm trying to say. That you been able to develop into the person you are now. Even though I don't know you that much, I can feel you as a human. I can feel your humanness and simply wonder, was it a supporting field? Was it something in you? Both?
Well, I like to think when I work on my family issues, I give a lot of credit to my mother. Mm-hmm. I say that she's made me everything I am. And I described a little earlier that through my adolescence, college, even graduate school when I was in my early 20s, I was on the accepted path, the path that people said I should be on. And when that fell apart, I needed to reconstitute myself. And even though and a very good friend asked me if I could do anything I wanted, what could I do? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was relatively successful working as a financial manager, but but I identified that in college, I went to an NTL training. I was in student government, went to an NTL training, National Training Laboratories in Bethel, Maine, and was in a group. And then we did peer groups in college, orienting the freshmen. And I really liked that. I really liked being in groups and talking with people. And I identified that I'd like to help people. And after that, I read books on all the different psychotherapies, very small books, not very detailed. And I came across Gestalt therapy verbatim and read that, and wow, that was nice. That was waking up from the cliche layer. I was in the cliche layer, and I could recognize and see that. And then, and I could see that my marriage had not been working, so we successfully separated. It was a young marriage. We didn't know who we were. We didn't know who each other were. And even though we'd known each other for many years. And I looked around for a therapist because I was feeling bad. I was feeling very guilty. I had done such a thing as I was a failure. And I found, just very lucky or very wise, I found the New York Institute for Gestalt Therapy. I found Richard Kitzler and Pat Kelly and a whole bunch, and I found Identity House, a gay rights counseling organization. I wasn't gay, but the people there evoked a quality that I have always found among our colleagues, but also among the gay community at that time, people who had to work through pain. And in working through pain and feeling not connected, there was, for me, an authenticity that I wasn't finding in the group, if we can call it that I was a member of. And so that was just wonderful for me. The people were wonderful. They had their difficulties, they had their characters that were this way and that way, but the essential quality of working towards truth and genuineness has a force of its own, a quality of its own that penetrates. And that was in Gestalt therapy. So I read PhD, Cross, Heflin, and Goodman, and I must have read it 30 or 40 times. And finally decided that I needed to train or to get educated further in it. So between Richard Kitzler and therapy and reading PhD with him and with Isidore Fromm, a greater in-depth understanding, but the essential quality of my humanity was developed in my going to therapy, integrating, appreciating, working through the pain of as I was structured then with guilt and the burdens of I should. So that was a great awakening. And over the years, that's facilitated me working with others in a helping way to feel my own capacity to be connected with people. And it's kind of worked out. So and then process groups in AAGT, something that I so much warm to, and the wonderful inspiration of Carl Hodges and Kitzler, and implementing process groups over the last 25 years, something that has filled me out more of who I am. I can't say that I was this way. I'm a becoming, as everyone is. And so I'm becoming new. And even with you now, this is a new me with you. I'm here with you in some new way. And
yeah, please.
I did a small spontaneous effort with various social workers that I had never met before last week. And at the end, it was an orientation to Gestalt therapy. And at the end, they gave me some feedback. It was a small, very small group. They gave me some feedback. And among the feedback was they felt a number of adjectives, very nice, very interesting, that I was kind. But one of them, person said, or a couple of them said, confirmed and loved. And loved kind of threw me a little. Maybe I'm not being good enough therapist if I'm loved. That's a little too much for me, accepting that. So, and this week, I recognize that there are very deep psychomotor agitations in me, that if I get too much, and this is early trauma too, if I get too much, it's an agitation that starts perking away. So even saying these words to you, a little part of my mind saying, are you off the wall? Et cetera, et cetera. But I can quiet those. I can be aware of them. I can accept them. And now I'm back with you. And I just share that as an example of my process. So I'm learning about myself, and being here with you now with your eyes closed is just fine. Just fine.
Yeah.
I thank you. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate
that. Well, I am not so sure whether I understood you right with this social workers' feedback. If tell me if I understood you right, that they felt confirmed and loved somehow by you, and you were and that you were taken aback by this love, and this made you felt made you feel a bit agitated, yes, and it is and this is what I didn't understand, if this is something a trauma-like experience for you to feel this agitation.
The early disturbance was I can't expect to be heard without a negative response.
Okay. Got it. Oh, okay. And got it means even felt it. Okay.
And what are you feeling now as you got it and you put your hand over your chest?
A bit breathless if I imagine myself hearing this.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. With eyes ready to, tearing and tear.
I just psychomotor agitation is a phrase I used the other day. I read it the other day in PhD in a chapter called Reality, Emergency, and Evaluation, where he talks about subnormal and supernormal reactions to the world. And so I've been aware of that, and this helped identify that process more clearly. So, that's where that reference came from. And I appreciate you sharing your own response. So we're here together, we're making this moment together, and I especially like
that. And I like it too, because somehow, I am, I would like to be more and more able to, to to be like this. I mean, it's no surprise in a way that I am closing my eyes. It's not only because of your presence, but because of something that is in me. This need of to connect with people in this way. Hmm.
I was discussing with people yesterday managing Zoom connections, and the use of the phone without the visual sometimes allows for a deeper resonance with the sound and intonation of the voice,
Mhm.
that we get a different vision. And I think these different visions, the different perspectives, the more perspectives we can have of an experience, the more we open ourselves to that experience and learning.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. And now it's I remember reading you on the listserv and reading that and now it's somehow coherent with what you already said about yourself, that you are really you work a lot with people. I mean, like on a daily basis and in a week, that you are really like you have many people to work with. Is that so? That you are really like a hard working therapist, really
yes,
devoted
my
to
prime,
help?
yeah, my primary work is in individual practice,
Mhm,
and as opposed to teaching, I don't travel for teaching,
mhm,
and that is not my primary activity. It's very actually peripheral. In recent years, I've been doing these PHG study groups, line by line reading of Pearl, Sefton, and Goodman, that I like very much. And uh, um, I have I have three of them now, and I'm organizing a new one. And I can only do that because I'm always excited by the reading, and I always find it new. And that's not everyone's experience, but that's the extent of my teaching. Other than that, I'm doing individual sessions, and I feel that's where I need to be to understand more of Gestalt therapy. That, while Gestalt therapy is a great psychotherapy, it doesn't have all the answers. There's still something unknown that's out there, and someday it'll become figural to me, and I'm going to come across it, discover and invent it as a aggregate of the individual work, that'll make it more and more coherent.
ah,
So that's what my time and energy, really. Um,
okay. So again, if I understood it right, is that it is well partly for the sake of the people you work with, but it's also because of I mean, because of the very fact that you are convinced that out of your experience, I imagine, and your practice, that there are things to be discovered, to be maybe articulated better within Gestalt uh, theory and practice. Is that what you are saying?
yes, I think there's always one of the wonderful things about Gestalt therapy and all the Gestalt therapy practitioners is that we're all engaged in a creative process, and it takes many different forms. And I'm there also in that. And this, by working in practice, I find a way for me to hone my skills, to practice and learn more. And I think that's why I've been able to continue to do this work, because I'm nourished that way. And a couple of months ago, I found myself very, very, very angry, very, very sad, very afraid with COVID-19. And in one of the groups that was being done, that I participated in, we're discussing trauma, and it came to me that the creative process of Gestalt therapy is we work with our continuum of awareness and staying with awareness and acceptance of our feelings. That in and of itself is an action that helps liberate us. So when we stay with it, when we breathe into the fear we're experiencing or the anger we're experiencing, we do something different with it. We process it, we integrate it, and something new will emerge from that. And so the creative process, as I've been thinking of it in the last 3 months, is newly emphasized for me. I always knew it was there, but it's newly figural. And so that's what I connect with as you bring up this subject of my working with individuals.
And what about this group which is newly forming? Because I noticed your advertisement about this new group, and is it already there? I mean, have you already started, or is it still open and one can enroll?
It has 2 more possible places. I wish to keep the group small, and so I don't want to go beyond 8 people. We have 6 people who are committed.
Okay.
With the study group, so I'm very excited about this because PHG is not for everyone. It comes out of a certain milieu, it's a certain kind of presentation. I've always found it inherently to be a creative process. From beginning to end, Pearls and Goodman take us through the major dichotomies that have split our integrating our organizing process. And out of that, Goodman, in his style of writing, who is a poet, a sociologist, a psychologist, a radical political person, for me, has a somewhat complicated and challenging form of expression. And writing anything where we translate from feelings to words is always a challenge. And Isidor Fromm, dean of American Gestalt therapists, said it was designed to be a tutored work so it wouldn't be introjected. It's really difficult to introject that work because it has so many references and they move in and out of context. So when he mentions contact or good contact, it's in a context and it needs to be understood in that context. So it's a difficult, challenging book. But reading it for me is a development, as an experience. And that's what a person who writes for theater does. They give us an experience. So developing one's Gestaltist perspective and developing one's own individual voice comes as a result of a process. So it's almost like a meditative, a meditative piece of work to read the text. And so much comes up as we discuss it. So I like it for that reason. It's not reading ideas. It's an experience. So I'm pleased to be organized, pleased that people have responded to that. I think over the last 30 years, PHG has become more and more a place of reference. And everyone I know goes back to it at one point or another to refer to it as a bedrock for our theorizing. And then there's a lot that's not in PHG, and everyone is elaborating on that from couples, family, the relational, the aesthetic, is all elaborations of basic presentations that are made there in my mind. So I like it that way, and I think therapists, Gestalt therapists, at some point it's good to take a look at that book and to go through it. So yes, there are two places. That's true.
Okay.
And I tried to make it. I want to say this. It's not a reading of the text, it's an experience. So we do the group as an experience, and it's supported by people sharing their personal and professional experiences. So it's a little like and doing that brings in a personal involvement and a collegial support that I think the book requires to really understand it. And that we don't know enough of how to do that. Thank you for that chance to speak about that. So it's as much experiential as it is theoretical. And it's certainly meant to be supportive. It's not to stress people out with being overwhelmed. We have to do something with that book that we have to do in our everyday life, even with vague figures like we're experiencing in our connection. We have to let some of what we don't understand wash over us. That we'll get it eventually. Our awareness has a creative process of its own. And if it's important and pertinent to us, we'll come to a figure of it. The figure of awareness.
Yeah. As I said, exciting. It's exciting to be listening to this part in particular, and thank you. And one more question for sure is about future of Gestalt therapy. What do you think? I mean, yes. What I mean, I'm laughing because it's like ask for fortune telling, but surely we can say something about Gestalt therapy practice and theory. How would you say? Maybe it's even a kind of extension of what you already said about PhD and
I'll just bring in. I like your question very much, and I just like to bring in Laura Pearls, and what is a famous quote that there is many Gestalt therapies as there are Gestalt therapists, and what that essentially inherently says for me is that one of the qualities of Gestalt therapy that's really very dynamic is how it allows people to identify with who they are for themselves. And that, I think, is a primary human ethos, a primary human way of being that we wish for ourselves. And when we have the experience of it, we like it very much. And that's why Gestalt therapy has been as popular as it has, that it supports people dynamically organizing their forming self in authenticity, truth, and in relationships to others, and highlights all those things. So that is, for me, a very, very powerful organization of experience. And that extends beyond anything having to do with resolving disturbances. It has to do with growth and positive living. So I'm not saying Gestalt therapy is a formula for life, because everyone has to have their own formula. But I think it has a long future of change, inherent change, because change will always be present, improvement, but its basic elements of authenticity, self-discovery, discovering one's world are so vital and strong that that's a contagion. And we've seen that in the growth of Gestalt therapy and in Gestalt voices, that everything you've been doing is a product of that. You're a product of that. Mm-hmm. So how wonderful is that? Mm-hmm. And out of that, we get social and political change. Mm-hmm. There should be much more of it. But all the dictators that are so present in the world today know that art and artistry and creative process is something they should be frightened of, and they are. And that's why they have to repress it so much. So I have faith that human strength and capacity and feelings and sensation will ultimately win out over those murderers. Excuse me for using such a harsh word, but my anger breaks through.
Accurate, no? Those words, unfortunately. Okay, Perry. Thank you very much for this interview.
This is very much a pleasure. And I want to say that if you do have an interest in studying PhD, I would very much love to have you in one of my groups.
Thank you.
Sometime. No pressure.
Okay.
And no pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure at all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this hour. Thank you for this hour.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is a big deal. What you've done creatively is a big deal. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we connected so quickly. I mean, within a couple of hours, in fact, when you,
I haven't looked at the time. You've made this very exciting for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye and have a good day ahead of you. Yeah.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.